Considering the iconic simplicity of the original TIE Fighter design, it has always been difficult to design something new, well, without overcomplicating things. But how about we try and do that regardless? In this video I'll be discussing which parts and inspirations from the original Star Wars ships that influenced this design. We'll be talking about what role this ship would play in the universe and what are the real-world parallels, if any. And lastly and most importantly, we'll be discussing which subliminal sensations you get as a viewer. And ultimately, what is the feel and the character of this design? My name is Rasmus. I have 20 years of professional experience as an art director and concept designer in the AAA games space, and I'm on a mission to inspire and enable your creativity, and I love to talk about design. So let's dive into it. So as I mentioned, if you do new TIE Fighter designs, they can get a little messy, and the term of uglies are met with much opinion, I would say, in the Star Wars fan community, and it is basically when you smash together known designs and pretend that these designs are built by pirates or something. Of course, the Star Wars aesthetic in general is very reliant on the natural, chaotic needs of warfare and whatnot. So things are coupled together with the leanest means possible, because let's say the rebels don't have the same means as the Empire. So of course there's a bunch of storytelling in there. However, it tends to get a little busy, and even some of the official, semi-official, canonized designs can get a little clunky. If we go back to the beginning, obviously many of us nerds are familiar with Colin Cantwell's early design models as this one, and a basic idea executed super roughly, but an idea that still really illustrates really well the core concept of a center cockpit and these two solar panels or heat radiators or whatever they must have been at this point in time. I'm not sure if there was a specific, precise idea about it at this early point in time, and if you know, let me know in the comments, obviously. But as I mentioned, the design went from there and has, through the years, have progressed through all kinds of interesting, more or less interesting ideas, I would say, and some of them are amazing and some of them are less amazing in my opinion. I swear I hadn't seen the type root as I designed the ship. I swear. I solemnly swear. But if we go back to the source here, we see good old Joe here building Vader's advanced TIE, and here's some concepts where Joe Johnston riffed on Colin Cantwell's designs, and I'm sure there was some McQuarrie in there as well. And you can see how he was very smitten with detailing and already had an interesting interconnected shape language happening, and these details are very much present in the film and the shooting models as well. So I love Joe, and I love his work. It's so cool. Look at even at these tiny little slats in the cockpit, almost as if it's vented or armored or something. So cool. So these are some of the really early thoughts. And if you recall my model, you'll see it has this flat center, but it also has the wings. So obviously there's some of this TIE bomber design in where you have a center flat panel of the wing, and then you have these inwards slanted parts. And there are more details as well that we'll come back to. But if we start with the wings and the main body, these wings, I love the TIE bomber. I think it's such a cool design. And these wings that it shares with the Vader's advanced TIE are really core. The other link to my design, or the other way around, my design links to this, is exactly that, Vader's TIE as we see here with Johnston. And if we take a look online, again, I discovered this Craft Your Fandom forum, and here's somebody taking pictures of from the Star Wars exhibit, Rimo, senior member, and you can really see all the details of Johnston's design. We looked at the wing before, we looked at these slits here, amazing. And I remember talking to some of my buds online about what the hell color is a TIE fighter anyway. And depending on who you ask and what movie you're in and how it's graded and what's the white balance and what's the film stock and whatever, they certainly seem to change color a lot. I'm not a big fan of blue. I think they should be neutral gray, but maybe that's a shooting special effect need. Maybe if some of you are knowledgeable about that, you can let us know. But what I do like about these models is when they chip, and yeah, here you can see the paint of the model has chipped off, and I really, really like the aesthetic of when models have been stored maybe under the wrong circumstances or with the wrong moisture or whatever, and the paint chips and the model rots. Also the Nostromo model from an earlier video had that a lot, and when the paint chips and it flakes off and it gets even more organic and even more physical, I really, really love it. But color and shape aside, I'm losing myself here. We go back to what I was talking about before, namely the wings and the center. So here's a forum, stupid. Again, Craft Your Fandom, and Analyzer is posting some shots of this Vader model here. And it has this flat, rounded centerpiece, which is really, really interesting. So these were the basic, the wings with different angles on them, the center, flat pancake center, as well as the double hull, was really, really the core foundational inspiration for me when doing this design. So if we take a look at that, again, here's a front view. You can see the idea of having two components to the center body here is there, but of course, unlike the TIE Brute, this gun is quite small. If we take a top view here, we can see these bodies are far apart, and they also have they have a similar shape actually. They're just sort of oblong canisters in a sense, but the weapon is quite small. I imagine there is some sort of reactor power something going from the central engine components out into this gun, and I feel like this particular little space here indicates the power of the weapon itself. Also, I like a gun with a snub nose, and I think that makes it look chunky and menacing. I suppose I could have given it a long gun, and it would have been sort of a Lancer type thing. That might have been cool as well. Maybe I should do an alternate version. But here you can really see the flat body as well. And if we look at this particular, this particular picture, you can see that rather than a round butt, I have this really aggressive angling from this part of the body out into the solar panel wings here, and it gives it this really, really forward grasping sort of nature, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. So yeah, if we jump straight into Blender to just review the design a little bit more, I can more easily show you what I'm talking about. So again, we talked about the flatness of the center. We talked about the double hull and these inverted, if you will, TIE Bomber inspired wings. One of the things I did with it was I made the bottom wing quite a lot, almost twice as long as the top wing, and then they're angled so that they're sort of angled downwards a little bit, and I think it gives it a more interesting stance in a sense. And you might notice this little thingamajig down here. Actually, it's quite thin, and that's simply a throwback to this shape from the bomber. Of course, this is where the bombs sort of get dispensed, and for my design, there's no real design sensibility to it other than it being some sort of targeting sensor or something. Why it would be outside of the body, no explanation other than the visual counterweight of what I imagine being this weapon here. So it's simply to have something to balance out the design. Obviously, I know it's off balance because the cockpit is way bigger and visually more heavy, but I love but I love in Star Wars when the designs aren't completely straight down the middle. Another thing you might notice here is this elongated grate. It's almost like a throwback to the Snowspeeder in a sense. I feel like this stuff is super Star Warsy. It's like a really low-tech cooling or something. And I feel like this it's just super Star Wars to me. Maybe we see it in other places than the Snowspeeder. If you remember why, let me know. I don't recall exactly, but it feels like it's super Star Wars DNA for some reason. And then back here we have these nozzles here that I made look extra sinister and claw-like and insectoid and tooth-like and Mordor-like to give it this sinister vibe. Moving on to the role of the ship, I see this as being a straight-up attack and support ship. I see it as being the one you call when you've gotten into trouble and you can't get yourself out. This big boy comes in and makes a bad day for your enemies, and that's why I had the P-47 Thunderbolt in the intro, A10, things like that. I love my chunky attack boys. I think that's something that's fun to design, because I suppose the designs are allowed to be a little bit less elegant and a little bit more brutal, and I like we'll talk about that some more another time, but for this case I really wanted it to feel like a heavy chunker. Nimble, sure. Fast, sure, but heavy and effectful. And the last thing I want to mention is the nature of the beast. We talked a little bit about in the intro about what's the vibe here, what are we going for. And when I see this, I really see so that's the Thunderbolt. Here's a cool photo by Brian Spur. Look at that. I mean, so awesome. When I see this tie design, I really see a falcon or an eagle in its attack pose, if you will. You see the forward sweep of these shoulders, and it's almost like wings stretching forward. But even more so actually than a falcon, of course, I feel like it's a little bit talon-y, it's a little bit grippy. But even more so than that, these solar panels make it feel a little leathery. So I think this is a little cutie here, but maybe a flying dog, or that's at least what they're called in Danish. Like these bat wings are just something I see in this one. So I think it is incredibly bat-like, actually. And so I think having a heavy attack ship that comes in when you're in trouble, makes a mess of everything. It's fast, it's heavy, it's dirty, it's attacking, it's pouncing on you. And I think that leathery attack body it has is really fun. And it's actually kind of funny. What I really like about the original tie is that that's a low-res image. Anyway, what I really like about the original tie is that it is so neutral. It's actually very, very unique in that sense, that it doesn't have claws and spikes and all kinds of things. It looks kind of meh. And that's part of the magic of that one. So even though, of course, I'll defend making designs that are very evocative, I think the OG just works because it isn't particularly evocative. That's the complexity of the craft we're having here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what to make of that. Yeah, so that's the heavy tie. I hope you enjoyed the thoughts that I went into it, and I personally especially enjoy the nature of the beast, the energy, the vibe, the character of the ship. I think it's really fun to work with that mindset in terms of mechanical design, emotional mechanical design, if you will. And so, a short video. And by the way, this model is free if you sign up for my email on my email list on technouveau.net. So if you want to play around with this in Blender and mess around with it and see what you can do, or you just want to rotate at your own perusal, then please go ahead and sign up, and you'll get a welcome mail and a little link and so on. And of course, plus you'll get other news updates and such. So yeah, see you around.